Welcome, everybody. Day 2. Hope you're all enjoying the conference. My name is George Mekhail once again. I am really looking forward to this conversation about long-term Bitcoin holding with the next generation. Myself, I've been in Bitcoin since 2017, and one thing I've noticed is that Bitcoiners, we're starting to get older. I don't know if you've noticed this. A lot of us are starting to have kids even. We're thinking more about the future and sort of what happens to our Bitcoin. So we get to talk about fun topics today like death. Who's excited? Yay, everyone's favorite topic, among other things that we're going to touch on. So before we start, one thing I do want to state is that the opinions of these panelists are their individual opinions. They don't necessarily represent the respective institutions that they hail from. So with that, let's meet our panel. I want to invite you each to tell us a little bit about yourself and then maybe share your one-sentence thesis about what it means, multi-generation Bitcoin, what it means to you.
All right, thank you everybody. I hope everybody's having fun. My name is Pauline and I run strategy over at Change now. It's an instant non-custodial crypto exchange. And been in crypto for 7 years. I work a lot with the retail investors, with the younger generation. And my take on multi-generational Bitcoin is kids and Zoomers and millennials. It's going to be up to you to build a new layer of intergenerational wealth because those boomers and those Gen Xers, they're not sharing.
Well said. Gracie?
Hi, everyone. I'm Gracie Chen. I'm CEO of Bitget. We are a central exchange, and we serve more than 120 million users around the world together with Bitcoin Wallet. That's a decentralized wallet that we have in our ecosystem. So my one-liner for multi-generational Bitcoin is that in our Asian culture, every Chinese New Year, my son, I actually have a 6-year son, and I'm a single mother there. So my son receives some red packet. So every year, I just change his red packet fiat, Chinese yuan, Hong Kong D, USD, everything into Bitcoin, and start to store that for him. I think that's a smart activity since I've done it for a few years, and I think everyone should do it.
Love that, making it practical. Thank you. Sagun.
Hey everyone, Sagun here, morning Hong Kong, happy to be here today. Yeah, my background is I've been since 12 years almost in the Bitcoin space, class of 2013, come from a computer science background, so kind of had the privilege to learn and understand Bitcoin early, got lucky there. Yeah, and I kind of been there in this space, having looked at 3 epochs. So I will try to kind of nuance and share today a little bit from my experience of last 12 years, how each cycle looks from that perspective. My one key line would be that we are in second antibiotics revolution. The first antibiotics elongated human life. That was around 1920s. After a century, here we are. And Bitcoin is a tool that will give humanity a reason to have more babies. So we are finally entering a generation where there won't be a population decline. There will be a population proliferation because people will finally have the ability to store wealth that will give them the confidence to have families. I think that's one of the biggest problems we're facing today as a generation. Yeah. In the West, a lot more than in Asia, but I think Bitcoin becomes that fundamental inflection point. So when our children look back, they will see Bitcoin as an antibiotic for human population to proliferate.
All right, we are starting out on a bullish note with that. I love it. So let's set the table for this conversation a little bit. A lot of people in the room may already have wills or trusts. Sagun, maybe I'll start with you here. How different is it when you think about sort of traditional estate planning compared to how you have to consider Bitcoin-specific estate planning?
Yeah, I think the most simplest mental model to kind of understand this is we are kind of evolving from the idea of jurisdictions. Mostly previous estate planning and trust planning is tied to a jurisdiction or a country or a state that you live in, and it's governed by those laws. Internet and email changed a lot of borderless communication. Bitcoin brings a very similar kind of borderless wealth transfer and movement. So fundamentally, Bitcoin, if you see the way it is designed technically, it is not tied to a certain jurisdiction. So the whole mental model flips now. You're actually thinking about planning and propagating your wealth, and it's nothing to do with a certain jurisdiction. Yes, there are conversations around people saying that how does one treat Bitcoin in a certain jurisdiction today? But that's just a today problem because we're bridging the old world from the new world. But if you're talking about inheritance 20 years, 30 years, 40 years down the line, I think fundamentally you need to kind of understand and believe that this is one tool that can help you wire your wealth from one generation to the other. And it's borderless, so it's not tied to jurisdiction, so it's not tied to law per se. Yeah, you might want to tie it, but that's just a today problem. I see it that way.
Yeah, go ahead, Gracie.
I actually want to address what Sagun said in terms of it's not tied to jurisdiction. On the opposite, I mean, I don't disagree with that, but on the other note is that especially when the SEC approved spot ETF, when lots of institutional money are coming into cryptocurrency, we're not just in a small circle of crypto native people, miners, traders, etc. It's becoming more mainstream. And a lot of people are holding Bitcoin not by holding Bitcoin directly, but by buying, for example, ETF, or by working with exchanges like us to purchase their cryptocurrency. So jurisdiction actually become a very key thing here. Unless you are a self-custodial all your cryptocurrencies, like what Sagun, actually he was sharing his methodology backstage, which I find very fascinating. But I think mainstream and most of the crypto holders can't do that because it just asks you to be very technical and very degen. So my take on that is jurisdiction is very important, and for people like us who want to pass my Bitcoin to my next generation, I actually need to work with local governments and the local lawyers to set up maybe a will, a trust, and then the problem becomes how to custody those cryptocurrency and how to pass them over when, touch wood, anything bad happened to you. Like you said, we need to talk about death here, although it's a hard topic, but we will die one day in the future. And when you die, you don't have access to a lot of information. Your family doesn't either. So how to set up that whole structure to make sure, number one, they know that you have Bitcoin and how much you have, where they are. Number two, how to pass it to them, like legally, technically, everything. So it's a very tedious structure that you need to think about. And there are a lot of different solutions. You can self-custody, you can put it into an exchange, you can maybe leave it in ETF, or you can even put it in a hardware wallet and put it in maybe your HSBC safe box. So there are a lot of ways around this, and I guess that's why I find this topic that I'm invited to speak at very fascinating and very interesting.
Definitely. Yeah, Pauline, please jump in.
Yeah, before we, I'm going to curb your enthusiasm here a little bit. I do agree with you. I just think that before we start talking about how to preserve your wealth, we need to pay closer attention how to start building that wealth. So I'm a millennial. I'm turning 30 in a couple of months, and I come from a relatively low-income background, and as a lot of millennials, as a lot of Zoomers, as a lot of people my age, I have not had any opportunity to build a lot of wealth for myself, and I do find that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general are a very good investment asset to start building that wealth for myself. And the problem here is that not a lot of people who Bitcoin is going pretty much to save, to help out in building wealth, are not aware of that. So before we start worrying about self-custody, before we start worrying about passing wealth from generation to generation, and it's going to be a trickle-down situation here, we need to start educating people. We've been doing that a lot in Change now. We need to start educating people that it's easy to start stacking your first sats, and we don't have much time left because we've got these, like, no shade to Bitcoin treasuries, no shade, maybe a little bit of shade to big name investment firms like BlackRock and like MicroStrategy, because they're hoarding Bitcoin. There's a finite amount of it. And before, like, long before you know it, the same thing is going to become to Bitcoin as it's going to become, like, as it's already become for example, the housing market in the United States, where big name investment firms have pretty much bought up the entire fund of available housing. It is just sitting empty. The same thing, in my opinion, is going to become is going to happen to Bitcoin. And I do think it's very important that we start reaching out to younger people, to demographics that are getting more and more income as, like, millennials are aging, they're getting better jobs, they start making money that they have even after like buying Labubus and matcha lattes and avocado toast and like iPads and iPhones and everything like that. They have some money left over. We need to motivate them that that money can be put into savings in a very reliable and demonstrably increasing in value wealth.
Yeah. And I want to stay on the topic of education, because obviously it's something very important. We talk about it a lot in this space, whether it's, you know, Bitcoin 101 education or learning how to set up a hardware wallet. How can we make this really practical? Like, if we were to give the audience a next step to take to, you know, whether it's their kids or someone they're mentoring, how do we make this really pragmatic? You know, what's the hands-on next step that people can take with them?
Honestly, I'm still looking for that answer, because as someone who's extremely online, I am very deep in like public discourse on various issues. And in the West, at the very least in the West, I follow Western discourse as a white person. Right now, the reputation of Bitcoin is that of a Ponzi scheme, that of a scam, that of a casino. And I'm still kind of looking for ways to make it known, again, to those people more of like of a liberal mindset, right? Less of a libertarian, more of a liberal mindset. How we can kind of still looking for a word, how we can demystify Bitcoin, how we can de-scamify it, and how we can de-Ponzi schemify it in the public eye. And I think I am going to dedicate the next like few years of my career working on actually fixing that.
Love that, thank you. Gracie, I want to go over to you. We've heard the meme in our space, not your keys, not your coins, right? It's a very, very popular one. Do you feel like there's accuracy to that? Do you think there's anything that you want to clarify about when people say that, in terms of, is that the only solution? Should we think about diversifying how we custody our Bitcoin stack?
I think about diversification, but also know who you are. Know what's your strength and weakness. So not your key, not your coin is very much attributed to probably the other two panelists who have the very strong opinion around holding their own wallet and their own cryptocurrency. Honestly, I'm running exchange, and we are custodying our users' cryptocurrency a lot. And you probably seen, FTX collapse. There are other exchanges who just went bankrupted, and people lost their cryptocurrency because of that, or maybe lost half of some portion of it. However, if you are holding your own assets, your own keys, you can also lose them. Your hardware wallet can be burned down in a fire. Your software wallet, once you lost that, 12 digits of, 12 words of all the remembering words, then you lost the access to that wallet as well. So there are different ways of losing your assets, even if it's your key and it's your coin. So that's back to my point. You probably want to diversify, or you want to put all your eggs in one basket and make sure you take care of that basket very well. If you want to work with exchanges, you realize you probably don't, you can't, or you don't want to self-custody all your wallets. You want to pick up a good one. You want to look at the ranking of all the exchanges and only work with maybe with top 5, top 10 who publish their proof of reserve, who are very transparent about what they hold, and they have Merkle trade proof of reserve, things like that. That you want to work with only the best ones. And then if you want to buy a hard wallet, don't buy it on Douyin or Taobao. You buy it on the official website of Ledger, for example, because I've seen cases that if they buy it in a third-party website, they just buy a fake one, and they lost their cryptocurrency because of that. So that's my point. Diversification is one way of looking at, but I would personally more be in the position of put all your eggs in one basket, take care of that basket very well.
Yeah, well said. Sagun, I want to go to you. From just a technology standpoint, there's been a lot of recent developments that I think have been pretty exciting. What's one that you're most excited about that you think a lot of people aren't even aware of yet?
I think to address that, I would also like to kind of highlight what Gracie was, I'll fold in the answer with both the aspects. So we are at a juncture where you won't lose your keys anymore. I mean, even if you did, the technical insurance that comes along with the technology called Miniscript is a standard that a lot of wallets are upgrading to. So you should definitely look out if you're looking at pure Bitcoin in that sense and you have a wallet. You should definitely go back to your wallet provider and check whether are they giving you the Miniscript standard. The reason why I bring this up is because Miniscript gives you an ability to create multiple keys as a signing mechanism, so that if you lose one of your keys, you have the other 2 keys. So example, if I have 3 keys, I can actually use 2 of 3. This has been known as multi-sig in Bitcoin, but Miniscript steps it up from an inheritance standpoint as well, from a backup recovery standpoint as well. So all this news around, having lost my keys and lost my stash is a thing of past already. There are wallet providers that give you an ability to recover, and then there is a multi-jurisdiction setup that you can do for yourself, technically. So you could actually place your keys with certain providers in multiple jurisdictions as well. And in case if you lose it because of a fire or a situation at your home, you still have 2 other keys that are geographically spread out. So you could still go back and recover. So I think we are at a cusp or an inflection point in humanity's term, where Bitcoin will not easily be lost. I think that's a juncture. It is much safer. It won't get hacked if you have the right kind of standards that your wallet is following. So I think one takeaway for all of us here in the audience is to kind of go and check back with your wallet providers whether are they following the Miniscript standard or not. And that's very important because we're talking about wealth preservation. If you're talking about passing on this stash to your loved ones, and if you're not doing the respective due diligence on what kind of wallet standard are you following, I think you're doing a disservice to your loved ones in some sense by not being proactive in upgrading to the right kind of wallets that support these standards. And I think this is one technology to look out for. This has been in the works for quite a bit.
Yeah.
This was launched 2 years back, but wallet providers are just starting to now upgrade to this.
Love that. All right, look up Miniscript. That's your homework assignment so far. Pauline, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, thank you so much for bringing that up because I think might have happened to if quite a lot of people in the audience. Back in 2019, I bought my mom some Bitcoin. It was like $300 worth. Back then, like 0.002 or something like that. And I gave her her mobile wallet. I was like, Mom, this is your backup. This is your password. Please don't lose it. A few months pass. I think she changed her phone, like she got herself a new phone. And the backup just, like, she forgot the password. She lost it somewhere. So I still look at that wallet sometimes. There's like 6,000 to 7,000 worth of Bitcoin in there right now. I kind of keep it as a cautionary tale for myself to make sure not to buy my mom any Bitcoin anymore.
That's the lesson, yeah.
So to just jump in right there, right? Like this scenario in 2019, if I do it in 2025 now, and if I had a Miniscript backed wallet, the beauty is if you watched any of the Pirates of Caribbean movies where they're doing a gold treasure hunt and they have these 2 or 3 keys to open up, right? So when I'm setting it up, it is 3 keys to open up that gold treasure hunt, that gold I can take out. But after 2 years, that same thing can be opened up with just 1 key, not all 3. So it's called contracting multisig. So when I set it up till 24 months, 3 keys can be used. But after 24 months, let's say somebody forgets to whom I've gifted this, I can just use one of the keys that I hold to claw it back. So this is a recovery mechanism that's so beautiful now, that's been put into so many wallets out there, I'm talking technically, it'll be very difficult to lose your keys or your stash, because even if you did, there's a recovery mechanism, very strong recovery mechanisms.
Very exciting. Believe it or not, panel, we are out of time. Thank you so much for this discussion. Audience, hopefully you walk away from this conversation at least beginning to think about this. You know, we never know what's right around the corner. So hopefully that is your encouragement. Thank you so much for being here, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.